really, really strong laning partner with them. Thresh incredibly good against things like the Alistar, the Rel, even the Leona as well. So it's a really, really strong pick in the meta right now. We're seeing it banned a ton. And you can set up light here. Even if you don't have the aggressive matchup in the bottom side, you can set up for a very strong weak side.
Whoa.
That makes sense. Strong weak.
Whoa.
All right.
Whoa.
LvMao's Bard. Let's go. For anyone that doesn't know, LvMao is a Bard player. He is the Bard player, if nothing else. He's famous for his Bard. We're about to see a masterpiece. Bard isn't better right now. It's just JDG are feeling damn confident. They know how good they are. They've got a good matchup. This feels great.
I am still surprised to see the Bard being picked, though. It's just one of those picks you just don't see this year. It's, like you said, one of those picks that LvMao is very confident. They knew it was going to be a Jinx on the other side that you're going to go up against. So they opt, you know what? We're going to give an easier time for Kanavi to be able to move around the map if we have the portals, as well as a good stun opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a really good point that Bard hasn't played a lot this year, but that's because Bard isn't that great into these hard engaged supports. He is good when the other support doesn't have a really easy way to just lock him down and punish him. So LvMao gets to play his signature pick. They can play kind of weak side on the bottom here. They don't need to be aggressive on the bottom lane. Again, we're okay for JDG. If you just handshake that bottom lane, you can play towards the top side instead.
Oh,
Loken going with a Caitlyn. This is spicy, man.
Yeah, Caitlyn is not something that we've seen too often this year either. And, you know, I've heard a couple rumblings in the backlines of people talking about, you were talking about Varus earlier, and another one was Caitlyn, that she might start being seen a couple more times, a little bit more often, especially if you pinch the pool of viable ADCs. Paired up with a Bard, too, makes it such a volatile bot lane.
Yeah, and here's the thing about Caitlyn is she wins lane. Like, this is one of the big things about... One of the only reasons that you pick Caitlyn. There are two significant strengths in my mind about picking a Caitlyn, is that you're going to win most lane matchups in terms of AD carry versus AD carry, but also you have incredibly good siege. She's not really the best mid or late game AD carry when it comes to just pure raw damage, but she can if you set up on a siege. If you set up like 1-3-1, for example, Caitlyn's a monster. She takes towers so fast. Her traps give you so much zone control. So we'll see how JDG play around Caitlyn. It's one of the hardest AD carries in the game to play around as a team at the top level, in my opinion. So I'm curious if they'll go for like a 1-3-1 composition with this.
As they have banned Jace and Ryze on their side to take away a couple of those options for those viable split pushers. And Zoe, you mentioned in the last champ select, is something that Yagao is comfortable taking blind. They opt to do it again, and because they're red side, Zoom is getting counterpick.
Yeah, so they're not going 1-3-1 with the Zoe. They're very much setting up to be kind of a siege poke composition with the Bard, where you can go for the dives when the opportunity is right. So expect expect Zoom to be going for something probably that offers hard engage here, something where he can be the big engage tool, because Udyr not really going to tick that box quite. You could go for, I mean, Ornn doesn't really fit the docket that well. You quite like something that runs in itself. Maybe a Scion could be a good option, but LNG might take that away themselves.
And I'm wondering, if that Scion gets locked in, will they lock in Sett? That's the pick that could give them that opportunity to be able to dive in the backline, do what you wanted, which is be that hard engage.
It's definitely a composition where JDG want to be snowballing. The cho'gath locked in for Mikuya. This is something that Zoom played himself, looked amazing last week. This was, I want to say, against the Scion, if I'm not mistaken,
yes,
but I don't exactly remember.
Oh, no.
And
I could look it up, see what it was against. I know that the Sett was against Scion, so seeing Sett here played is not too surprising, just because Zoom wants to be able to bully around a lot of these tanks, try to go into the face of a cho'gath, and Sett is one of the best champions to do so.
Here's one of the things about this matchup, though. If Mikuya plays it well, you can Feral Scream to silence the Sett, get an auto in to put him in feast range, and then feast him while he's silenced. Sett will try and hold the Haymaker shield as long as he can in this matchup to try and block the feast, but if you can Feral Scream it correctly, cho'gath can find kill pressure.
Mm-hmm. And just so I was able to find out who it was against. It was against Gragas that the cho'gath was played into by Zoom. So a bit of a different matchup here. He's got to go against something that is going to want to bully him. And for this draft, for JDG across the map, this is such a hard composition to try to fight against if you're LNG. Not only can they kite you back, but they have such good siege potential.
Yeah, but again, it's really important to mention that with all siege comps, you have to be ahead. Siege comps kind of suck if you fall behind. You don't get to siege when you don't have any control of the map. You need to have vision on your sides. You need to be able to control their jungle as well as the lanes, right? Otherwise, you don't get to siege. So for the side of LNG, it's all about the early game here. They need to try and get themselves ahead. The problem with that is look at their carries. They have a cho'gath that realistically not that strong until he's got a couple of items, until he's able to scale up his ult and get the stacks. Same with Icon on the Orianna, same with Light on the Jinx. These are kind of late game focused picks. So you can expect that JDG should be able to get ahead early. They should have priority in the bot lane, so Kanavi should be able to stack up Drakes. I'm liking the look of this composition. I'm liking the look of the way this is going for JDG.
I do as well, loading up into game 2 between LNG and JDG. JDG on this absolute terror here in this latter half of the split. If they can get another 2-0, this time against LNG, puts them in a great position to try to see if they want to contest for the top of the standings.
Any nodders in the chat? Because Lwandy's certainly nodding along to this one. He's ready to get into this one. Oh, that might be Mercurio, actually. I could be mistaken on that one. Excited to see how this one goes down, though. And I want to see JDG being proactive and aggressive again. That's the big thing for me, is that it feels like most of the split, it felt like the meta was getting slower and slower and getting more passive. And now we're getting to the end of the split. It feels like it's gone the complete opposite direction. It feels like whoever's able to play faster, whoever's able to snowball their lead the quickest, is able to get the wins, especially between the top teams. So I'm excited to see a lane bully like Caitlyn locked in. I'm excited to see LvMao's Bard, as I always will be excited to see that. The question is, what can LNG do to stop this train?
Especially because I'm looking across the map. I'm looking at all these lanes, and it seems like there's going to be a lot of lane priority for JDG. This puts a lot of the onus onto Tarzan to try to alleviate a lot of this pressure, and we already know that Kanavi is able to maintain pressure with him.
So one of the things I'm looking at as well is, obviously, I just want to kind of reiterate this, that this is an incredibly important matchup in the standings. For two reasons. For JDG, who are 1-0 up in this series, this would be their 10th win, which would mean they would be tied for 4th place with 3 other teams. There would be 4 teams in 4th place, basically. Top Esports, OnePlus Phoenix, Rare Atom, and JDG, all on 10 wins if JDG can win this game. They would be behind RNG, WE, and EDG that are all on 11 wins. So we have a very, very close top 7. If JDG wins this game. It's absolutely insane. But also, on the other side of the board, the more negative side of the board, LNG are 7-6 in series right now. They are fighting to make playoffs. A win here would just about, it wouldn't quite lock them in, but it would just about lock them in for playoff contending here. But the issue for them right now is that they have a negative win-loss ratio. They are now -2 in game difference, which is really, really bad when it could come down to tiebreakers.
And why don't I make this narrative a little bit more difficult for LNG? Their next match after this one is against Suning, who they're currently tied in the standings with. And that would make it a little bit more difficult for them. If Suning are able to beat them, it's maybe even likely that LNG barely don't make it into playoffs. Sure, they end the season facing off against Rogue Warriors. But this series against JDG and then the next one against Suning could be make it or break it.
And I think, to be honest, for me, it's not even about the standings at that point. With the Suning matchup, it's like, okay, like, you have the series against Rogue Warriors, so I'm fairly confident that LNG will probably make it. I don't think it will be a matter of 11 teams having 8 wins. I don't think BLG will make it to 8 wins. So I have a feeling that the way the standings are will be how this goes down, because BLG have to face Suning and FPX. I expect them to lose at least one of those series, right? So in which case, 8 wins is enough to make it in playoffs. So based on that assumption, let's assume LNG makes it to playoffs. But Suning are also going to be a low seed in playoffs. It's very possible that we see LNG versus Suning as one of our early playoff matches. if LNG are looking this shaky against JDG today, if they end up looking shaky against Suning in next week's game as well, that's going to be a really, really bad look for LNG as they move towards playoffs, and they could be out in one of the first rounds.
That is not how you wanted to enter into spring, especially when they had such a strong start. They were a team that a lot of people were really confident on how they were going to be able to perform, but after the break, it seemed like a lot of things were falling apart for them. They weren't as confident as they had been at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, it does feel like it's been a bit of a turbulent time for LNG. Apparently there was an issue with the game loading, so hopefully that'll be resolved soon and we'll be able to get into this one. The draft will remain the same. We're just trying to get everyone onto the server. But yeah, as you say, LNG started the split off strong. There was a lot of hype around this team. But here's the thing. When you look at this roster, you have Tarzan, who's like the big exciting player in the jungle, right? Came over from the LCK. Him and Viper both previously Griffin players. A lot of love around these players. Huge fan bases around these players. But when you looked at, like, he was one of the first players to be announced for LNG coming into the year. And we were like, damn, okay, Tarzan LNG, that's exciting. Let's see what kind of roster they build around him. And then as the rest of the roster got announced, it kind of got less and less exciting, right? I was not excited for Icon on this roster. I wasn't particularly excited for Icon last year either. I feel like Icon has been pretty underwhelming this split. Light and Lwandy have stepped up. I can't take it away from Light and Lwandy. But up in the top side as well, Ale and Makuya both have been fairly disappointing. So when you have these solo laners that really aren't stepping up, it's really difficult for Tarzan to have the freedom to be able to show what he's able to do in these games.
So just to give everyone a little bit of a heads up, like you had already mentioned, Munch, there was a problem with loading into the game. We are just going to be remaking the champion select, as in just picking the same champions. Everything's remaining the same. So that's what's taking a little bit longer to be able to get into this game. Hopefully it won't take too much longer so that we can see the second match between LNG and JDG. And, you know, I do want to cycle back a little bit to what LNG might be able to accomplish with this draft that they've gotten for themselves. We're expecting a lot of their lanes to be kind of weak, kind of difficult to be able to fight back against what JDG drafted. But as long as they're able to not bleed out, if they don't, you know, get dove too much, or if they're able to absorb some of that pressure, they do have scaling options.
Yeah, I mean, the scaling is great, right? The team fight later on in the game is great. Certainly in the top side as well, the lane shouldn't be that bad. I think Sett has a favorable matchup against cho'gath, I'm pretty sure. Like, I don't know the matchup super well, but on paper, I would imagine that Sett wins that one. He wins against most tanks. But cho'gath versus most tanks is like, he has a lot of sustain. That was a really weird sentence. It didn't make much sense. The point I'm trying to make is cho'gath has a lot of sustain. He also has a lot of mana sustain, which is very rare in this game. Like, not many champions have inbuilt mana sustain. So cho'gath can just have a corrupting potion, runtime warp tonic, just sit in the top lane and farm up the entire game.
Acidin, Rise, cho'gath. Who else? I'm trying to think if anyone else has a mana regen in this game besides those three. Because that's a good point. I never really thought about that. And it's a really rare stat to have, like, built into your kit. And that does give a little bit over to Makuya on the cho'gath.
Xerath does.
Oh, Xerath does too.
But it's kind of
you're right.
garbage.
He has to either auto-attack a minion or auto-attack. He wants to auto-attack a champion, but him auto-attacking also feels bad because it's Xerath auto-attack.
Yeah, generally these passives kind of suck, right? Because usually it's at the cost of having really high cost abilities or a really small mana pool. So ultimately you don't gain much. And then you have other champions in the game with really OP passives like Cogmore, for example, where you do true damage. So, you know, some of these mana-based passives not the greatest.
Of all the true damage
clearly being
passives.
sarcastic. Come on.
I know, but I'm just saying, it's like, you could have gone with, the one I would have gone for, let's see, true damage, that's a really fun one. I mean, personally, going for the Inting Scion build's always fun, but it's always better to go lethality with that, just because you can take towers really quick and run at them. But
yeah, the classic Earth strat right there.
Exactly. It's one of those fun strategies. I mean, Cogbo, you can do the Earth strat there too, where all you do is try to die constantly, so you can keep getting that true damage, as you said. I believe NA's been a pretty good aficionado of that, but we don't see Cogma anymore. And in fact, we are getting into game 2. to be able to witness LNG versus JDG. Who is going to be able to take this one? Can LNG bounce back and be able to tie it up? Or will JDG, with the counter pick top lane Sett, be able to crush the dreams of LNG?
I have to say, I'm leaning towards JDG right now as we get onto the Rift for game number 2. Apologies about the delay, everybody watching, but we are onto the Rift once again. And look what Kanavi is doing. He's getting a little bit spicy. Zoom trying to bait Makuya into the 1v1 to set up for his jungler. I don't think it's going to happen. But Kanavi potentially starting on this top side is interesting because it means that he wants to path down towards the bottom lane, wants to set up his AD carry and support. Obviously, this Bard Caitlyn lane, while Bard isn't usually known for being picked to bully lanes, is fine against the Thresh. As Zoom looks for the 1v1, spots out Makuya, knows the no cheese is going to be going on. But you can see Kanavi has moved down to the bottom side in the end. They were just making sure that Zoom was completely safe. He'll actually get a very late ward onto the blue buff as well.
I know exactly where Tarzan is starting. Tarzan's like, well, you know what? Gonna make it a little bit more difficult here, especially because we see how much help Kanavi's getting on his blue buff. And, I mean, sure, it's not really that unexpected for a Caitlyn and Bard lane to want to kind of show up a little bit late, since, as you mentioned, Thresh is going to be able to get a good amount of poke. But man, Zoom, can he not for just a moment, man? He is just a king in this top lane.
You could say he's the king of the pit or whatever.
Or the
Called.
boss.
I can't remember.
He's the boss.
Yeah,
yeah.
There you go.
There we go. We got it. We
See,
got
I'm witty,
right.
guys. I can remember words and things. Haha, very funny. I'm so good. Anyway, if I could have nailed it, it could have been good. Let's talk about the bot lane here, because LNG, again, we need to see that part of the map showing up. Once again, this mid matchup really, Yagao is just having a whale of a time there, but with this Jinx, Light is in a position where he can be the premier carry for the side of LNG. You can see a ward coming down from Kanavi as he knows that Tarzan will be on the bot side of the map, but backing off, doesn't actually want to go for the 1v1 here. Tarzan reading that and then going back to the chickens. But when you look at this composition from LNG, I'll try and finish this point. I keep getting interrupted by gameplay, but Light is the premier carry across this team. When you've got this Jinx, it's always going to be to some extent the case because Jinx is such an insane carry in the late game. But you're looking towards 2 items before Jinx is really much of a champion. 3 items is where she's spiking really hard, right? So thinking about, you know, 3rd dragon, this kind of thing, playing around the Barons is really going to be the name of the game for LNG. So a very slow early game. Whereas the opposite can be said for JDG. Caitlyn, incredibly good in the very early stages of the game. She's exceptionally strong in the laning phase. Falls off a bit in the mid game. She has a bit of a power trough. But then later on in the game, incredibly good as well. But once again, we're talking about siege situations for the side of JDG. They really want to set up in these long, drawn-out fights where you just keep your opponent at long range.
And so, for the time being, it seems that LNG at least want to be able to take away one of those avenues to success from JDG. Because Loken and LvMao had to show up to the lane a little bit late to help out Kanavi, it's given Light and Lwandy a lot of pressure bot lane. But Kanavi doesn't seem to really care. Not really minding at all, because he's playing more around the top side. Yagao has been pushing in Icon this entire time. Zoom constantly bullying Makuya. And pretty much this matchup is null and void, and they might even be setting up a dive.
It's possible. I think Kanavi's just going to reset.
Nice
he was just
flash, trying to get away.
But
wow, he dives to the zap.
Wow, really well played by Light and Lwandy. This is the issue of Bard, right? Bard wants to roam. If you get caught out while Bard is roaming, you die. So Loken goes down. Both summoners used as well, importantly. So now a huge advantage for LNG. We said the way that LNG wins is if they can win through the bottom side of the map. I wasn't confident it was going to happen from this draft, but a fumble in the lane from Loken sets up LNG for a fantastic laning phase.
Pretty much that pressure you get early game for this Caitlyn Bard lane is null and void. Unless Kanavi can try to dig them out of the ditch that they have been buried in, we're not going to see this Caitlyn really come online for quite some time.
So let's... Oh, it was just Lwandy. Literally just flashes for the play, which is kind of your textbook Thresh play. And you see the cleanse? Loken was like trying to Captain Jack cleanse the hook. He was trying to outplay it and try and survive, but here's the thing. There was a zap there as well. If he just moved to the side, maybe he could have dodged those and got away with his life, but Unfortunate play there from Loken. And yes, you may have the prestige skin, my friend, but you still went down in the play. That's all that matters at the end of the day. So fantastic play here from LNG. And great to see Lwandy being aggressive. This is what we keep praising about Lwandy, is that he wins these 2v2s. He is aggressive, then he gets out on the map and influences the game. We're seeing it again here in game 2 against JDG.
Isn't that what we asked them for? We asked to see less of that passive bot lane. We wanted to see Lwandy and Light be able to put that kingdom in the bot lane because we knew Zoom was going to have his top side. So LNG needed to have something that could answer it elsewhere.
Flame Chompers come down. Loken has to opt into the Flame Chompers to dodge the hook. That was close.
I actually thought that was still going to land because you know how the end of the hook is for that death sentence. Kanavi back up top lane. Magria not yet level 6. Might be a pretty easy dive for them to be able to execute with the showstopper. Unfortunately missed that rupture, so look at the damage on top of him with a huge shield to flash away, but you know that Kanavi's looking to chase down, flashing away to be able to survive too.
It's a little dicey, but they get away with it. We got to see that little interaction I talked about in Champ Select, which feels like a long time ago now, but Zoom got silenced as he was trying to go for the Haymaker, so did manage to get it off in the end. Had that silence just been held a tiny little bit longer by Makuya, that maybe could have been a turnaround kill. He didn't have the level 6, but the tower would have finished off Zoom, but he managed to get the Haymaker at the last possible second. So they get away with that one. It costs them both flashes. It costs them the ult from Zoom as well, but they get the kill importantly, and they denied a massive amount of CS from Makuya. That was a double wave that crashed, and you could see now 24 CS lead in favor of Zoom.
Pretty much making up for what's happening in the bot lane over for JDG, because you can see about a 20 CS lead for Light. This Jinx looking in a pretty good spot to counter it. So for the side of LNG, really doesn't matter if Makuya dies too much. He is going to be that tank. He's going to be that front line. As long as you're not getting Zoom to be enabled elsewhere on the map, I think you take those.
Yeah, you're quite happy with that one right now. I think LNG overall should be happy with the state of the map. I think inevitably Makuya is going to be playing weak side, going to have a bit of a hard time. You can see Yagao is wanting to extenuate that situation, as he knows he has the topside scuttle. Just going to grab some honey fruit for now. But Zoom, he can just freeze his way forever. Makuya, this situation does not get any better for you, my friend. You are going to be stuck in this top lane where you don't really get to play League of Legends. Zoom is able to just sit underneath this tower. Nothing that the jungle can do to help either, because Kanavi can match and just turn that into a fight. So really, really rough now. Is LNG look to make a play towards the top side? They want to invade.
Kanavi had just recalled, so unfortunately for him, he's going to realize that his red buff was stolen away. Might even be able to get a couple wards for LNG to try to see if they can get some vision back on the top half of the map, make it less confident for Zoom to try to find those 1v1 plays into Makuya.
Yeah, so the support's roaming up here for potential heralds.
Shockwave used nice dodge away with the portal jump to be able to get away, because that could have been bad.
The minion blocked Lwandy's hook. He didn't see that there was a 1 HP minion in front of him, so just gets denied on that one. Unlucky for Lwandy, but ultimately we saw that both supports moved up towards the Rift Herald as it spawned here. They went for the invade play from LNG. This will be Herald started by LNG, but Kanavi wants a piece of the action.
They have Tempered Fate from LvMao if they want to be able to use it, but the hook's going to be able to land on him and bring him back in with the play. Ragnarok has been popped, but somehow he dies to the Ignite on the other side, trying to be able to get away. Supermaker Deathrock doesn't pick up the kill, but they get the kill of Kanavi on the other side. All the while, Icon trying to see if he can kill Kanavi, but he's still alive, and they take down Icon. How did he survive for so long?
What was that? He got so many heals from Triumph across the course of that play. Oh, Logan's in trouble. Rocket's
he'll be fine.
Okay, he's fine. So yeah, I want to take another look at that fight because he was so low so many times in that one.
That was wild. I don't know. Like you said, it was those Triumph stacks keeping him alive consistently. Thought for sure he's dead now, right? No, okay, he's dead now. No, now! And he never died in that fight. So they get the charge onto the Rift Herald mid lane. That is a lot of gold picked up for Yagao. Probably going to be able to get at least 3 plates off of it.
Yeah, the minions should finish that last plate. So Yagao maybe will get that plate solo as well for himself on the third one. LvMao, unfortunately, he holds on to the Tempered Fate here. I think he maybe expected to get away, but the reckless swing came through at the last possible second there. And then here, look, Kanavi gets down to 1 HP from the reckless swing, but gets a heal from the Triumph and manages to keep himself alive with the tilt stance. Then another Triumph comes through, and then another Triumph comes through, and Kanavi just lives the entire fight on sub 200 HP. Absolutely insane.
I want to know how many times he was either double or single digits in that fight. How many times he was able to get back up. And now, Zoom having this great fight in Mikuya. He's got 2 level lead over this cho'gath. That is brutal.
And look, Zoom's ult was on cooldown. If Zoom had his ult available right there, I'm pretty sure that's just a kill. I'm pretty sure that's just a dead cho'gath. And you know what? Zoom is the guy that brought this cho'gath to the top lane this split. I'm pretty sure he knows how the champion works. I'm pretty sure he's happy to go against it. 2v2.
As that Haymaker shield, look at how much damage it does back. They're going to be able to at least trade Zoom's life for the top lane, but Kanavi might find the kill underneath the turret onto Tarzan. He's got 4 kills on Udyr.
Double kill, baby, coming on in. Zoom already has 3 turret plates on that top side as well, so just going to crash the wave. Doesn't need to try and stick around. Won't be able to get any more plates on the back of it. And damage mid as well.
Icon's dead here. Temper Fate used just to make sure they can kill him. Lantern was thrown, but it was pretty much all in vain.
Look at this. JDG just roaming around, moving Death Squad right here. Kanavi is looking for an MVP is what's happening. 100% kill participation. Got himself the first Herald of the game and immediately slammed it mid for the plates. You can see 2 plates left in the top side, 1 plate left mid lane. And you know what? It doesn't even matter that this Caitlyn didn't win lane. That 20 CS lead is nowhere near enough for the side of LNG.
I think you're right. Kanavi's mad that Zoom's got an MVP 3 times in a row and saying, my turn. I want some time in the sun. And for the side of JDG, they're in a prime position. They have every lane except bot lane really far ahead, but when you look towards this replay, I mean, Zoom is so difficult to kill.
Yeah, it's kind of insane. And he's able to finish off the cho'gath before the feast comes through that, or I think the feast was actually on cooldown from hitting a minion. Because that's one of the things people forget about cho'gath. You don't often get to just hold the feast to look for kill threat. A lot of the time you have to use that feast to try and get your stacks up. You have to get 6 stacks onto minions across the course of the game, so it's important to get those stacks early on in the game. Turret plate is finished off by Light there. Nicely done there. So it does get a bit of a gold injection for himself. This reset, though, can be punished by the side of JDG. They're already in the lane, so they'll be able to shove this underneath the tower and deny some CS from Light. With a couple of headshots, maybe get themselves another plate, as this would be probably the last plate to go down this game, as we are getting real close to that 14-minute mark.
I was a bit surprised that Light didn't hang around that bot lane just to deny some plates from Loken. Keep that pressure in the bot lane, since that's the one lane that they're definitively winning. That's the one place that they have some hope and some bastion to be able to fight in this mid game against EDG, relying on Light.
So up towards the top lane they go once again. Kanavi, not even ashamed to show that he's dying.
He's got a level lead over Mikuya.
What do you got, buddy?
The jungler.
Everyone is ahead.
Oh, this is not looking good. Mikuya realizes what's happening right here. Here's the showstopper. And look, Yagao's here as well to make sure that he is not escaping Paddlestar kill for him.
Easy as you like. Now to the bottom side, though, because Tarzan is trying to replicate on the opposite side of the map.
He's trying to, but unfortunately, it looks like Loken and LvMao were able to read that play pretty well. Despite the fact that Icon is rotating too, could be able to get something back. The Shockwave not going to be able to connect on the targets need to. Temper Fate not hitting Icon. Instead, Yagao wants to be able to get a little bit of poke with the Paddlestar, but they have to back out. They can't really find it just yet. The Sleepy Trouble Bubble connecting. Paddlestar as well. Getting a little... No, does not get the damage on Tarzan, so they have to back out.
Yeah, they will back away in the end, but look at the play difference, right? 320 versus 1440. There's a 4,000 gold lead. In fact, it's almost 5,000 at this point, especially once this tower goes down. That will go up to 5,000. And here's where Caitlyn's really good, right? Caitlyn is strong in the laning phase, but what she really excels at is taking down towers. We're still in the early game. We're not at that kind of mid-game power trough just yet for Caitlyn. It's when you get to like sort of 2 items that she struggles a bit. It's when you get to 3 items that she comes back online. So Still feels fine to be in this Caitlyn, and especially if they can set her up where she's just hitting on the towers, that's Caitlyn's comfort zone.
I also feel like even though, you know, there's going to be that trough, I think everyone else makes up for that. You have a 3-0 Zoe, a 4-0 Udyr, even Zoom, even if it's only a 1-1-4 Sett. Look at that CS lead over Mikuya.
Yeah, here's the thing. When it comes to the power trough on Caitlyn, power troughs don't exist if you're ahead. That's the thing, right? People always talk about power spikes. People always talk about, like, okay, well, this carry comes online at 3 items, right? And this is the point at which this team will start to really go big. And you can say that for LNG, right? 2 items is a big spike. 3 items is a big spike for LNG with the Orianna, with the Jinx. But it doesn't matter if the enemy is a full item ahead, because those item spikes are like comparative to your opponent. So sure, you might look good later, but it won't matter if you're caught out.
Looking to see if they can pick off Light. Ace in the hole, body blocked by Tarzan. So keeping Light alive is going to be pretty critical for the side of LNG, but look at what they lose across the map just trying to keep the AD carry alive. It's going to be Rift Herald. They've lost pressure around that dragon that's going to spawn here in about 45 seconds.
Yeah, 45 seconds on that Drake. That'll be the second one of the game for JDG, and I don't really think that LNG can realistically contest. They might, though. It's 5,000 gold lead right now. It feels really hard for LNG to fight. They kind of want to just scale up towards the later stages of the game. Looks like they will back away. Kanavi knows it. Kanavi just
he's
threatening with Tarzan.
He's 3 levels over Tarzan.
It's insane. I can't even find him. Where is Kanavi? He's 404 right now. Page not found. And this jungler will not be found for LNG. All they can look for is a big chicken right now because, yeah, Tarzan has basically been kicked out of this game.
Tarzan, Mikuya, both of them. They're pretty much joining each other on the sidelines, cheering on the bot lane, saying, Light, Lwandy, carry us, please, let's go. Because what else are they going to be able to do right now until they can get some of those items completed? They can't fight around this dragon. This is exactly what we expected. Big lead from JDG, getting themselves this first Infernal Drake of the game is going to set them up that if the game keeps scaling up, if it keeps lasting long enough, they have always that opportunity to fall back onto Souls.
And I just love that we're seeing a creative JDG this series. Mikuya ignited. Yeah, okay, I'm just going to move up to the rest of his team here. We get to see the Siege. This is what Caitlyn is picked for. Now with the Herald, they can just take a tier 2 comfortably.
Can take that easily. Look, bot lane as well. Zoom's been pushing in the minions this entire time, so they open up more of the jungle of Tarzan so they can have more pressure for Kanavi, while bot lane, they'd have it all set perfectly so they can rotate and take another turret. That's 2 turrets in the span of less than 30 seconds.
Oh, Mikuya hit with a bubble as well. That could be a kill if they can follow up.
Paddles are, body blocked by Zoom, but he picks up the kill. It's going to be the shockwave onto Kanavi, but look at Zoom in the middle of everyone. He doesn't care. God. He's the one forcing the flashes away from LNG to survive him.
It's like basically 3v4 there, I think, in favor of LNG, and it still comes out on top for JDG. They get another tier 2. Look where Loken is on the map. Not interested in the fight at all. He's playing Caitlyn. This is a PvE champion, guys. All he wants to do is take towers. So he goes up to the top side, starts pushing that wave, setting up for the next play from JDG. He'll set it up, get the wave to bounce, reset. Everyone can reset across the map here for JDG. The next card is going to be Baron right here. You got 1 minute 15 on that one. Expect JDG to reset across the board. Maybe Kanavi will finish this jungle first, and then go and get some vision. We can take another look at this play. I mean,
Kanavi.
Yeah, this is not much. Just look at the haymaker damage here. Oh, we don't get to see it.
We don't get it.
Okay, so Kanavi goes to the reset, as we said. Now JDG need to set up vision, and most importantly, deny vision from LNG, deny teleport wards from LNG, and look to potentially go for a Baron. They can play through topside, which is really nice here. You just sit Zoom on the bot side of the map. You send Loken towards that top lane, or you can even send Yagao as well. Just push that out, threaten the tier 2. Whenever the wave is cleared and you have to retreat, you can just retreat towards the Baron.
You know what's wild for me in this game, Munch? When I look at how JDG are playing, it might be a different comp for the most part, you know, only Zoe really being the one carryover they had from last game. But they're playing it nearly identical. 5 turrets, 20 minutes into the game. They have complete control around the objectives. This is just showing why so many people have always hyped up JDG as being such a smart team.
Yeah, really, really intelligent macro this game. And I think that the most important thing is that they are showing a very clear proficiency in understanding how far ahead they are. I think one of the biggest weaknesses of a lot of lower tier teams across the entire world is that they don't know how to push their lead. They don't know how much they can really push the advantage that they have, or maybe don't know the advantage they have, right? It's very clear when you look at this gameplay that JDG know how far ahead in gold they are. They have since they got like a 2,000 gold lead. They've been abusing that lead. And it's against the top teams in the LPL, you really get to see and get to feel that strength. Every single little bit of gold matters in these kind of games.
Right now, Zoom pretty much showing us what happens when you can hit people with the wallet. He takes no damage. He's not even afraid of Jinx being there. He's like, sure, cool, whatever. I can get out of here pretty easily. If you want to fight me, I'll bring it.
Yep, feels real good for JDG. And you can see them, they move towards the bottom side of the map here, trying to deny LNG any opportunity to get vision on the Dragon, because Dragon's coming up in a minute. That would be the sole point for JDG if they want to go for that. I honestly think for JDG, you can kind of ignore the Dragon for a little while. What you can do quite nicely is you are pretty much guaranteed this Infernal Drake, right? So since you are in such a commanding position, and actually Infernal Soul isn't really your win condition, right? It's a nice to have. It's like a win more at this point. You want to get it. There's no reason not to get it, but there's no rush on it. It's not like you need to get that ASAP. So what you can do is just make sure they have no vision, play around the bottom side of the map, push these waves in, let Zoom get pressure on the top side, force LNG way away, get as much as you can from them, take the entire jungle, take everything you can, maybe even try and siege for inhibs, and then you just get the Infernal Drake on the retreat when that comes up.
So far, you know what? Looks like they might just take it, because what else do they have to really play with? We can see there's the experience lead. It's a 3-level lead top lane, 3-level lead jungle. Oh man, this is not looking too easy for LNG to be able to fight back. I mean, they do have the scaling elements that we had mentioned in Champion Select, but when you don't have any pressure to even stop, you said JDG didn't need to rush it. Well, why not just take it if there is no rush? There's nothing that LNG can do, so as they're waiting to see if they want to be able to set up around Baron, they get themselves this Dragon and then rotate up towards the Baron if they want to be able to find this pick, especially with Lwandy getting caught like this. He's way too far out trying to get these wards, and so he's going to die for absolutely no reason.
Yeah, so Lwandy caught out. He's trying to get vision on the Baron. Mikuya's caught as well.
And he's just dead. There's no real survival there. You're 0-6 on cho'gath. You're not nearly as tanky as you'd like to be. And with 2 dead, you know now it's time for the Baron because they can take it easier.
So they didn't play it exactly how I was like trying to lay out, in that they didn't go for trying to siege the inhibs or anything like that. But what they did is they basically said, okay, Kanavi, you go do the Drake. We're going to play the rest of the map and take over. Rocket comes in and steals it.
He did it! He stole it with the rocket. Let's go, baby.
That was so hyped to see. So Jinx actually hilariously got a buff to how good she is at killing neutral objectives with the ult. I don't really know why this was buffed. This seems like a really weird buff to Jinx, but she's exceptionally good.
It's for that reason.
If you hit
the hype moments.
I mean, she was already really good at that. She was already ulting for more than smites do before the buff. Like, her ult, if you're level 16 and you're hitting an ult on a target that has, I think it's under 30% HP or something like that, your ult is going to hit it for like 2,500 or something crazy. Like, it's way more than a smite does. So Jinx is exceptional at stealing Barons these days if you can time it. But that's the thing. The hard thing is timing it. Able to do it beautifully, like from across the map as well. You love to see it.
Let's watch this. So we get the pick onto Lwandy. Oh, he was trying to save Tarzan. That was the problem.
Yeah, they were just trying to get vision, trying to get the Scuttle Crab. They did get the Scuttle Crab, so that's nice. And at least gave them timing on when things were going to be happening. And obviously the pick on Mikuya. This was his 6th death of the game. It's not been a good series for Mikuya, I think that's fair to say. But he's been against Zoom. I don't know what we expected. So there was no vision. This was completely blind. Across the entire map, completely blind. The ult just sails in. Bada bing.
LvMao could have just stayed in place and he would have body blocked it had he not moved.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he was expecting
I don't
to
think
come
so
through.
either. It
One
wasn't
thing
like
I
an
will say-
instinctual like dodge. It was just unfortunate pathing.
Yeah, like, here's the thing, though. This is actually a big deal for LNG. When we think way back to when we were setting up the win conditions for the two teams, it was about waiting and scaling up and looking for team fights later on. Well, guess what? Denying Baron from JDG, a composition that wants to siege, like, Baron is the win condition. I said how Infernal Soul is not really the dream win condition for JDG. It's nice to have, obviously, but it's not like they're looking to fight, really. The Baron is that dream win condition. That's how they win the game with this kind of composition. So denying that slows things down. LNG buy themselves a little bit more time, but they are running out of that time. Because even if it's not the #1 priority for JDG, Infernal Soul's coming up in 2 minutes, and you know, they ain't going to say no to an Infernal Soul. LNG will have to contest this one, but they're getting to the 3-item mark on their carries here.
I like this play coming in from LNG. They needed to be able to at least get something out of that Baron. Sure, denying it from the hands of JDG is big, but getting that gold is just as necessary because they've been hemorrhaging that lead. What was it? About 8,000 before the Baron was stolen. Now it's been whittled away at a little bit, about 6,500 now for the side of JDG, which, as you mentioned, it's great for LNG because all they want to do is delay.
Yeah, trying to buy time for themselves and look for a big team fight. Just think about it. Picture the wombo combo in your head, right? The shockwave from Icon, Makuya knocks everyone up, and then Light's rocket comes in and just blasts everyone to next Monday. It could be beautiful, but we have to see that happen. We have to see JDG group up for it. We have to see everyone landing those abilities. Icon not been looking good on the Orianna so far today. LvMao could be caught.
Was temporarily, but he's going to be able to bail out of that one. Zoom is recalling. He wants to be able to have TP flank. They've cut off the rest of LNG away from the Dragon Pit. This is what they want to see if they can force in a bad fight out of LNG. They still have that gold lead. Regardless of whether or not LNG can scale, they have to be careful on what can come in when they are the ones fighting into the team that wants to set up territory.
Zoom is sat in the base just waiting to TP. He'll have his home guards. There's a deep ward just behind the red buff there, behind LNG. This is the way they can set up. Here's the TP.
The TP, and he is going to be fast. He is going to look to get into that backline. They've got the lockdown onto Light. They've busted out the QSS. They brought him back into the fight. He's trying to get the Lantern to be able to stay alive. But look at this. The hard focusing on top of him. Our Light is gone. Now, even though they've lost Loken on the other side, it's not that bad because Icon is out of the fight too. That is LNG getting completely caught out. And Makuya, it's your 7th time you've died.
The Dumpling Brothers, baby. They come through again. Yagao with the perfect triple bubble onto Light. Forces the cleanse out. And then Zoom comes in. Gets the showstopper. There's no way to cleanse and flash out of the play. Light forced into the rest of the enemy team. He flashes after the fact, but he still goes down. Easy soul now for JDG. And they can blow this game wide open.
Loken's like, why do they keep focusing me? I'm not the important one in this fight. And even with that kill, you think you got Caitlyn. It's great. You have some way to fight back. But unfortunately for the side of LNG, that's not the win condition for JDG. He is just merely a pawn, a tool to set up that siege.
Exactly. Loken is not the damage threat in this game. Like, he's fine. All he has to do in these team fights is look juicy and follow up on the engage. Just make sure he's autoing and throwing some Qs out, right? But the main job is look juicy and bait them into going for him, because in the meantime, Zoom is eradicating. Like, you see him QSS the trouble bubble, but then he's pulled in by Zoom. The Lantern cannot save him because Kanavi is stood on him already. And the haymaker to finish it off. It's just beautiful on the side of JDG. Icon finally hits the shockwave, but he was already kind of doomed.
But I gotta give so much credit to Yagao in that fight. Landing the critical Sleepy Trouble Bubble that was able to get that QSS proc immediately out of Light. Without that, there's little way for JDG to confidently go for that dive because, what is it? You got QSS and Mikhail's that are both able to be used on top of Light to keep him alive. Well, now one of those tools is gone.
And you know, I've been talking about how the Infernal Soul isn't like a primary win condition for JDG. It's still super nice. Like, Yagao can comfortably one-shot people now on this Zoe. We got to fight.
Tempered Fate was able to lock down Icon again, and you know they're going to be able to eviscerate him. Look at Makuya, barely alive on the outskirts. LvMao jumped into everybody, but they're going to be able to get the trade on cho'gath so that everyone else can try to see if they can kite it back. They've got Tarzan low. Can they get that last little bit of poke onto him as they continue to keep them pulled away? Yagao gets pulled in, has to go golden to be able to survive, but they get the bear stance they needed to on I wanted to take him out. And now, even though Light has been untouched, unfocused, he is finally able to show up in these fights, getting the zaps, looking for Loken, looking to get excited, but does he get it? He does get a little bit of the kite back, but finally is taken out of the fight. And Icon, unfortunately, nowhere to be able to go back to. JDG are able to rout them.
Kanavi gets the triple kill to round this game out, and it looked close. It was so close. A 10,000 gold difference, though, is enough for JDG to close this one out. And honestly, I think JDG should have lost that fight. Ultimately, they misplayed multiple times, and Kanavi gets... Lwandy gets the perfect hook onto Yagao. This is going to be game.
It is game 2-0 for JDG, tying themselves up at the top. They have a lot that they have to work on if they want to be able to get a good playoff seed, but with this win over LNG, it is a good first step.
Really, really beautiful performance here coming out from JDG. And, you know, that last fight, a little bit shaky for them, a little bit overforced. And again, this is the same thing that I've been talking about multiple times now. Overforcing the issue a little bit from JDG, taking fights that you don't necessarily need to take because they feel like they're strong. Like, here's the thing. The composition that you're running, it ain't that great at forcing fights unless you got a TP flank. It's just the way that it is. Like, yeah, you can Tempered Fate in with Bard and these kind of weird, crazy, creative shenanigans that you can pull off, but realistically, it's not like you've got only Leona, you know, these classic hard engage picks. So felt like a little bit of an overreach on the fight off the back of the Baron, but ultimately it doesn't matter. They were so far ahead that they're able to close out the game, and I think that the mid game is actually what we should focus on, not those final fights, because the composition they drafted was not for fighting. It was for taking that map apart piece by piece, and that's exactly what they did. It was beautiful to see the way that they played around the map, the way that they forced LNG to try and chase them in circles around the map while they took towers. It was just, honestly, I'm getting excited about JDG again, which is something I've been wanting to say for a while.
Same here. I mean, they take down RNG 2-0. They get another 2-0 over LNG. Their mid-game looks so dominating, and like you're talking about, how they're able to constantly rotate for those objectives, getting the turrets, getting dragons, getting Rift Heralds. It was clinical.
Yeah, really beautiful stuff coming out from JDG. And with that, they are going to move up the standings. And importantly now, they got a 2-0 series right here. So their game difference will be positive 11, which means I think they go to 6th place now with Rare Atom in 7th place. But they're on 10 wins. RNG are on 11 wins in 1st place. There is 1 win between the top 7 teams in LPL. How insane is that? Like, just think about that as a sentence. 1 win between the top 7 teams. We have 1 week left of gameplay. How is it this close?
1 week left, 2 days left in week 9. This is insane how close it's getting, and it almost makes me wonder if there might be a possibility that we have game differential ties going into week 10 just with how crazy it's already been.
I honestly, it won't surprise me at all at this point if we have game differential ties deciding important seedings. Like, because there are essentially 4 brackets for seeding coming into playoffs. You got 1st and 2nd that buy the most rounds, then 3rd and 4th, then 5th and 6th, and then the rest of everyone, right? 5th and 6th skip the 1st round of playoffs. So I fully expect at this point that game differential could decide who skips the 1st round of playoffs.
Okay, I'm a bit surprised by this damage graph to see that Zoom is the one at the very top. I'm not surprised by Light, but seeing Zoom do the most damage is kind of crazy.
So the reason for this is because he's against cho'gath and laning phase. Like, we saw how hard he was just hammering away at the cho'gath. Every single time Makuya tries to come up and farm, he's hitting him. So while you don't usually expect a Sett to be topping the damage chart, with the laning phase that he had, plus on top of that hitting haymakers across the entire enemy team in those team fights, like, it's not that surprising to see him topping. And I think as well the fact that realistically you have a PvE AD carry that doesn't actually want to be in the fights anyway, and you've got Yagao who's just like burst damage. So the Zoes don't usually top the damage chart because they don't do consistent damage, right? They just do a lot of damage in a couple of seconds. So yeah, there's
then I
way
should be
over
more
in-depth
surprised
analysis of the damage chart.
I should be more surprised that Loken even has as much as he has, because he was just playing PvE for at least the first 25 minutes.
I mean, when you think about Caitlyn with 3 items, a headshot crits for 1,000 damage anyway. So that's like 10 auto attacks from Loken in a team fight.
And he probably got that many in the last 6 minutes of the game, so maybe that's what it was. But either way, JDG, very strong performance out of them. But for LNG, now they are at 7-7. They are holding on. As you had mentioned, they're probably likely to still make it into playoffs. But that's not really a great statement since they're going to be towards the bottom. That means they're probably going to face a team like maybe Suning or IG, since IG's around there. Let's see who else we got. And God, imagine we have this huge tie towards the top of the top 7 teams. One of them's going to have to face off against these other 3.
So importantly, LNG now have a worse game differential than BLG. I think that's the big concern for LNG fans right now, because BLG can finish 8-8. If LNG loses to Suning, then beats Rogue Warriors, let's say that it's 2-0 both times, right? Then they're going to be on -3 game differential. Even if it's 2-1 versus Suning, they'll be -2. BLG, I mean, it's a long shot for BLG, let's be honest. They have to beat FPX, and I think their other series is a hard one. So, yeah, they have to beat FPX and Suning, so that's still going to be a long shot anyway for BLG. But if LNG do go 8-8, it's possible that they don't make it and BLG makes it in. I think LNG are going to scrape in, but that's the key thing, right? Is that they're scraping in. This is a roster that was really hyped up. It's kind of a disappointing finish to the split, honestly.
It is. It's not exactly where you'd want them to be, especially when they started the season so strong. They started the season, you talked about it, they were hyped up because they had a team that was supposedly built around Tarzan, this star jungler coming in from Griffin. But it really wasn't able to have that impact once people were able to figure out how to play around them.
Yeah. And just on the topic of seeding as well, I want to quickly mention, because people are probably checking the standings now just to follow along with what we're saying. And IG are in 10th place, right? So you're probably thinking, wait, surely IG are the ones that are in danger of falling out and BLG over. IG have to face V5 and LGD. IG are going to go 9-7. Like they'll climb the standings. They'll finish like 8th or 7th or something. So don't worry about IG. They'll be fine.
Probably going to finish around 8th, just because, like I mentioned, that 1-7 is the tie that we were just talking about, and that's what's wild to me. Is one of these top teams is going to face off in the first round of playoffs. Whoever has to face off against them, it's going to be rough.
So I think it'll be Suning in 8th, then IG in 9th, and LNG in 10th.
But who's 7th?
And then I'm really not sure about the 4th through 7th is going to be all down to tiebreakers and shenanigans with game difference. So I have no idea on that regard. I'm not going to try and work out the entire standings right now. I already did that a week ago, and it's completely out of date at this point. So I'll maybe have to do that again. But yeah, it's crazy. I'm pretty sure we have our top 10 decided, but the seeding is really important, and it's totally up in the air.
Completely up in the air, but we know what is not up in the air is our MVP for Game 2, and it goes over to Kanavi. You were saying that he was putting on one hell of a performance, and he deserved to get that MVP.
Yep, completely in control of the game. Kanavi had a stellar performance today. When we talked about what was good in this game, it was the way that JDG controlled the map, and ultimately that was down to Kanavi and LvMao getting out there, getting deep vision so that Zoom could make these TP plays, being able to deny the vision so that there was no response TP plays from Makuya. Really, really good control of the game, but also just so proactive. Kanavi was everywhere he needed to be in the early game, just dominating.
He was, but I still almost thought that Zoom would get it, almost just to keep the 4 streak going. But you're right, it was all set up by Kanavi. That was a disgusting Udyr game from him to make sure that they were always ahead. Even though they were losing out bot lane, the top half of the map was so strong.
Just look at the kill participation, right? There were 20 kills for JDG in that game. He was a part of 19 of them. That is mind-blowing. That is such insane kill participation. He was setting every single play that happened up. He was completely in control of it. If this game was an orchestra, this guy was the composer.
Yeah, I'm even looking at how much damage he took. Took 40% of the team's damage. Like, yeah, I know he's a tank, but that is a lot still.
Yeah, I mean, he did definitely take a lot of damage. He is Udyr, so he's pretty good at that. We saw that in the fight, right? We saw the one fight where he was like sub 200 HP about 19 times across the fight, somehow surviving.
Again.
But these early game dives were really beautiful. I think setting the game up really nicely to start it off. Obviously, he managed to get this double kill for himself very early in the game. So at this point, he's just like running away with things. I don't think we'll see a replay of the fight where he barely survived because it wasn't super crucial in the grand scheme of the series. But this was the final fight where it was like, oh, maybe LNG can come back. Loken kind of trolled this fight, honestly. He did not play particularly well on the Caitlyn this game, but it didn't matter. Like, the rest of the team had this one, so we'll let him off. But ultimately, Kanavi, well and truly on top.
He was. I mean, then again, Loken was playing PvE, so when he actually put into the PvP matchup, he's like, wait, how do I do this? These minions are attacking me. I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, like, the team fight, I'm not going to focus on the team fight for Loken. I don't want to just be mean to Loken for the sake of it.
I will say for Loken that his goal was exactly as you had laid out. It was to make sure they could set up around these objectives, take turrets really quickly so they can constantly pressure LNG. He did his job to a T. It wasn't really about the team fights. Everyone else was for the team fights. You had Yagao for that. You had Zoom for that. Kanavi, LvMao. They were the ones to focus on the team fights while Loken kept being put in the side lane. So it doesn't really matter if you're not there for the team fights as long as you're doing your job.
Yeah, I mean, you can still add to the team fights as Caitlyn. He did miss a lot of abilities, but let's move on anyway. Regardless, he did a lot of work in the game, right? He took a lot of towers down. And I think Kanavi being definitely a highlight. Yagao as well had a great day.
Yes.
In both games today, Yagao felt fantastic. Like his Zoe performance. I mean, we already know Yagao is a Zoe player, right? This guy is real good on the Zoe, but just felt good watching him absolutely smurf on Icon today. Like that was just such an unbelievable mid-diff between the two players across the course of this series. Icon had a really rough series, and at the same time, Yagao was popping off, so it felt like an absolute valley between the two players.
Plus, landing that Sleepy Trouble bubble when it looked like LNG were starting to scale up, they had the whole idea of protect Light at all costs, and they landed a Sleepy Trouble bubble onto Light. Already getting a QSS, Mikhail's as well, still couldn't protect Light because too much had to be burned immediately. You're right, it was great to see. And honestly, looking at how this composition was, it was a bit different. And LvMao playing his Bard too, getting a victory. I don't know how many Bards have been played this season, but I think that if that's like one of the few ones, keep giving it to LvMao. He's doing great, even if it's not meta.
Yeah, LvMao doesn't care about your meta. He will play Bard, and he is insane on Bard. This wasn't even that great of a Bard performance, honestly. I kind of think that the JDG bot lane actually didn't play that hot this game. I think LvMao was fine.
I think LvMao was fine.
We've seen LvMao on like when he's playing really well on Bard. So we're spoiled. Like my expectation of LvMao Bard is like so insanely high that like if he just has a reasonable performance like today, I'm like, man, he kind of sucked today, which is not fair at all. He had a fine day. Like LvMao played fine on the Bard. It's just I'm so used to him just like single-handedly winning the game on Bard.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good performance, pretty much. Even, like you said, even if it's only just a reasonable one. But let's look back at what happened today, because we had a pretty quick day. Lots of 2-0s that took place. We started off with EDG, you know, their EDG against E-Star. Kind of the match you'd expect to start off the day.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a good couple of series today. Very fast series today, ultimately. Like, I think the fact that we got 2-2-0s was not super surprising to me, but I thought that the second series would be closer than it was. EDG, I mean, we expected that, right? But JDG versus LNG, I thought that LNG would give us a better showing. I didn't expect JDG to be this far ahead of them. I knew, like, I was expecting JDG to win, but I thought it was going to be closer than this. This is a really, really good sign for JDG moving forward.
It is. I mean, I was wondering this as well. I bet a lot of people, after beating RNG, how were they going to be able to transition out of that? Was it a one-time thing? Was it a fluke? Or is this consistent? Clearly, it is consistent. As you can see now, look at that top of the standing. 11, 11, 11, and 4 10s to follow. That is going to be one hell of a final week.
I don't even know what to add. We already talked about the standings. Look at that. 7 teams, 1 win away from each other at the top of the standings. We're in week 9. There are only, I think, 9 or maybe even 8 now play days left of the LPL. Like, I cannot believe that this is the standings we are looking at. And even 8, 9, and 10 are all tied as well currently. And it's likely that we have ties down there. So it is really, really crazy right now. And also, whoever gets 7th, whoever falls short on that tiebreaker for 7th has to play an entire extra round of playoffs, which is crazy.
That's the thing that's so wild, but we got to look towards tomorrow. First, we started off with Victory 5 against FPX. V5 have been on a little bit of a losing streak. We saw that in the standings, while FPX the exact opposite. But then after that, the match of the week, RNG versus Top Esports.
Yeah, I mean, where do you even begin? RNG Top Esports, that is going to be an absolutely insane series. Both with top laners that have been popping off. You've got Xiaohu versus 369, which is incredibly exciting as a matchup on paper, but across the board as well. Like, both teams that love to play aggressive in the early game. I think the most exciting matchup for me is Wei versus Karsa, because Karsa has not been a jungler that we've talked about a lot this split, whereas Wei very much orchestrating a lot of the early game for RNG. But I think Karsa is an incredibly intelligent jungler, and really importantly, the way that Karsa plays often is he plays to deny, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever the enemy jungler wants to do, Karsa is usually trying to deny that win condition as opposed to set up win conditions of his own. Because his laners are so damn strong, he doesn't really need to be setting up. He just needs to suppress the enemy jungler. And I think that's going to be a really interesting dynamic between him and Wei.
I'm really curious to see if the TES series against RNG is going to end up a little bit like how JDG were able to beat them. But we'll have to find out about that tomorrow, because we got to wait until then. Unfortunately, we don't have them tonight. We're all done for the night. We finished all our series. It was a great night. It was wonderful being here again. I hope you all join back tomorrow for those exciting games.